There are moments in life when faith seems like a fragile thread, thin, trembling, and almost ready to snap. You've prayed, you've waited, you've cried into the night, asking God if He still remembers you. You've watched others rise while you stayed still. You've watched doors close that you thought were meant for you, and deep down you've whispered, "God, where are you?" But what you didn't realize is that while you were waiting, heaven was moving. While you were breaking, God was building. And now, that invisible preparation is about to become visible manifestation. God is about to move so powerfully in your life that you'll look back and say, "How did I ever doubt Him?" Every delay had a reason. Every disappointment was divine direction. You thought you were being rejected, but you were being redirected. God was protecting you from what would have destroyed you. He was hiding you while He was preparing the stage for your comeback. You see, when God moves, He doesn't make announcements, He makes transformations. He doesn't need to prove Himself to those who doubted you. His power will speak for itself. You will not have to explain anything. The same people who thought you were forgotten will witness the evidence of God's hand upon your life. When God moves, He restores everything that was stolen. He doesn't just fix what was broken, He multiplies what was lost. He returns peace where chaos lived, laughter where tears fell, and purpose where pain once ruled. You will soon realize that every lonely night was a rehearsal for the glory that's coming. Every tear was a seed, and now harvest time has arrived. The seasons of silence were not punishment, they were preparation. You weren't buried, you were planted. It's going to happen suddenly. The turnaround will be so fast it will take your breath away. That storm you thought would destroy you will become the very thing that propels you into your destiny. The enemy thought you were finished, but God was just getting started. He allowed the winds to blow so He could clear your path. He let people walk away because they couldn't go where He's taking you next. You thought you lost everything, but what you really lost were the things that couldn't handle your blessing. This next move of God will not just restore you, it will redefine you. People will see a version of you they've never seen before. Strong, focused, anointed, and unshakable. They'll wonder how you made it, but you'll know the truth. It wasn't your strength, it was His grace. God carried you through the fire, not to burn you, but to refine you. He took you through darkness, not to blind you, but to sharpen your vision. What once broke you will now bless you. The same place you were humiliated will become the place you're celebrated. You may have doubted Him when you couldn't see what He was doing, but that doubt will turn into awe. The power of His movement will silence every fear, every worry, and every voice that said you wouldn't make it. He's about to prove that His timing was perfect all along. The delays weren't denials, they were divine alignments. The waiting wasn't wasted, it was shaping your strength, deepening your faith, and preparing your heart to carry what's coming. When this move begins, you won't need validation from anyone. The blessing itself will be proof. The peace that follows will be your confirmation. Doors will open that no man can close, and favor will chase you down in ways that defy logic. You'll stand there, tears in your eyes, overwhelmed by the goodness of God, and you'll whisper, "Now I understand why it took so long." Every struggle will make sense. Every loss will find its purpose. Every unanswered prayer will reveal the wisdom behind the waiting. So don't quit now. Don't let your faith faint at the edge of breakthrough. God is closer than He has ever been. His silence was never absence, it was strategy. His delay was never neglect, it was design. He is about to move in such a way that your heart will tremble, your faith will ignite, and your spirit will rise. This time, you'll know without a shadow of a doubt that it was Him all along. The power of His hand is about to rewrite your story, and when it happens, you'll look back and smile, because you'll finally see that every doubt was just a setup for divine revelation. God is about to move so powerfully that you'll never question His presence again. When it feels like heaven has gone silent, the human heart begins to ache with uncertainty. You pray and hear nothing. You ask and see no sign. You look for direction, yet all you find is stillness. In those moments, it's easy to believe that God has forgotten you. But what if that silence isn't neglect? It's divine strategy. What if the quiet is not proof of His absence, but evidence of His careful preparation? God's silence is never without purpose. When He seems still, He is not sleeping. He is setting the stage for something extraordinary. Think about a seed buried in the ground. For weeks it lies in darkness, unseen and unheard. Nothing appears to be happening. Yet beneath the soil, roots are spreading, structure is forming, and life is taking shape. The silence of the soil doesn't mean death. It means growth is underway. The same is true with God. When He is silent, He is planting something deep within you, strength, patience, faith, and character that will sustain you when the breakthrough finally comes. His silence trains you to trust what you cannot see, to believe when there's no sign, and to hold on when your emotions scream, "Let go." Many people give up in the silence because they mistake God's stillness for abandonment. They walk away right before their answer was about to unfold. But those who endure the quiet seasons discover something sacred. The voice of God is not always loud. Sometimes He speaks through stillness, through a sense of peace that defies logic, through doors that quietly close and others that slowly open. His silence is a test of trust. It's His way of asking, will you still believe me even when you can't hear me? In those seasons you learn to separate faith from feelings. Feelings fluctuate, but faith endures. Feelings tell you God has forgotten. Faith tells you He's working in ways you can't comprehend. The silence forces you to shift your foundation from what you see to what you know. And what you know is this: God's nature does not change. If He was faithful before, He will be faithful again. His promises don't expire just because you can't hear Him speaking them right now. Sometimes God's silence is protection. If He answered too soon, you might step into something you're not ready for. If He revealed everything too early, the enemy might use that knowledge to destroy your progress. So He hides you, guards you, and allows the silence to mature you. Just like a master craftsman doesn't reveal the finished masterpiece until every detail is perfected. God withholds revelation until your heart and environment are ready to receive it. The silence also teaches humility. It reminds you that you are not in control and that faith is not about commanding God's timing, it's about surrendering to it. When you accept that His ways are higher, you find peace in waiting. You stop trying to force doors open and begin trusting that the right one will unlock itself. You learn that sometimes the most powerful prayers are not the ones filled with words, but the ones whispered through surrender. God, I trust You, even here. And when the silence breaks, because it always does, you'll realize something beautiful. God was never far. Every unanswered prayer was being woven into a perfect plan. Every quiet night was drawing you closer to Him. You'll look back and see that His silence built a foundation that noise never could. It taught you endurance, faith, and discernment. It stripped you of doubt and clothed you in trust. So if you're walking through a silent season right now, don't mistake it for separation. God's silence is strategy. He is working behind the curtain, arranging divine alignments and preparing blessings that your current eyes cannot see. When He finally moves, you'll understand why He was quiet for so long, because He was busy perfecting the miracle that would leave you speechless. Every delay you've faced, every door that refused to open, every prayer that seemed unanswered, none of it was accidental. What looks like delay in your eyes is divine precision in God's plan. We often want immediate results, instant clarity and visible progress, but God doesn't operate on our schedule. He operates on purpose. His timing is never late. It's strategic. When things don't move at the pace you expected, it's not because he forgot. It's because he's preparing the conditions for something that will last. A blessing that comes too early can turn into a burden, but when it comes in God's time, it brings peace, not pressure. You see, divine delays are not denials. They are protection and preparation. Imagine a builder pouring a foundation. Before the walls rise, before the paint, before the beauty, there is groundwork. It's messy, slow, and hidden beneath the surface. But if the foundation isn't strong, the entire structure collapses. That's exactly what God does during your delays. He is strengthening your foundation, building your faith, pruning your character, and removing what can't stand under the weight of your destiny. What feels like wasted time is actually sacred construction time. Sometimes God holds you back not because he's punishing you, but because he's preparing the people and places tied to your next season. You might be ready, but your environment might not be. Or the opportunity might be perfect, but the timing could destroy its potential. God, in his infinite wisdom, sees every detail. The connections you can't yet see, the traps you don't know exist, the lessons you haven't learned yet. So, he delays, not to frustrate you, but to protect your destiny from premature exposure. There's a reason why God took Joseph from the pit to the palace, but not overnight. Years passed between promise and fulfillment. Every delay trained Joseph to manage power with humility, pain with wisdom, and leadership with grace. Had he reached the palace earlier, he might have lost himself in pride or revenge. But because of the delay, he carried destiny with integrity. That's what God is doing in you. A waiting is shaping you into someone who can handle what you've been praying for. When you look at life's delays, it's easy to assume that nothing is happening. But faith says otherwise. God is moving even when you can't measure the progress. The delay refines your patience, your perspective, and your reliance on him. It strips away the illusion of control and replaces it with surrender. You learn to say, God, even if it takes longer than I hoped, I trust that your timing is right. That kind of faith pleases him more than any achievement. It's not about how fast you arrive. It's about how deeply you trust while you wait. The truth is, divine timing is never rushed, because God is not building moments, he's building legacies. What he's preparing for you is greater than what you've lost, and it's taking time because it's meant to last a lifetime, not a season. When his perfect moment comes, it will happen so seamlessly that you'll realize every delay was worth it. The pieces will fit perfectly, the right people will appear, and the doors that once stayed shut will open without force. So, when it seems like life is standing still, remember this: God's delays are deliberate. He's not making you wait to break you down, he's making you wait to build you up. The promise is still alive, the plan is still in motion, and the blessing is still on schedule. You may not understand his timing now, but one day you'll look back and see how every delay worked together to bring you exactly where you were meant to be. And when that day comes, you'll say, now I see. It was never a delay, it was divine timing. There are some seasons when the pain feels too heavy to bear. You ask God, why did this have to happen to me? And the silence feels like a wound that won't heal. But there's something sacred hidden inside that pain. God never allows suffering without purpose. He uses pain as a sculptor uses a chisel, carving away everything that keeps you from your true strength. You may not see it now, but the very thing that broke you is shaping you into someone unbreakable. The tears you cried weren't wasted. They watered the soil of your destiny. Pain has a strange way of teaching lessons comfort never can. It exposes the weak spots in your faith, reveals the illusions you trusted in, and forces you to cling to God with all your heart. It's in the valley of pain that you discover who you really are. When everything is stripped away, people, plans, and security, you find that what remains is faith, and that faith becomes fire. That fire becomes wisdom, that wisdom becomes power. God doesn't use painless lives to reveal His glory. He uses scarred souls that survived what should have destroyed them. Think of gold refined in fire. Before it shines, it must face the heat. The flame doesn't destroy it, it purifies it. In the same way, your pain is God's refining fire. It's burning away the impurities, the fear, pride, doubt, and dependence on others, so that what remains is something pure, radiant, and strong. You didn't go through what you went through to end broken. You went through it to rise brighter. Every hardship you endured was molding your spirit, toughening your faith, and deepening your compassion for others who suffer. When you feel like everything is falling apart, remember this: pain often comes before promotion. You cannot carry divine power without divine preparation, and preparation often wears the disguise of pain. David faced lions and bears before he ever faced Goliath. Joseph faced betrayal and prison before he ever touched the throne. Every great purpose passes through seasons of pain, because pain is what teaches endurance, and endurance builds strength. God uses pain as a mirror. It shows you what you depend on and what needs to change. It awakens the sleeping parts of your soul. It breaks the walls you built out of fear and opens you up to receive His grace. You start realizing that the hurt people caused wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal how deeply you needed healing. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and start understanding that you were chosen to rise from the ashes. And when healing finally comes, it doesn't just mend your heart, it transforms your identity. You become someone who no longer fears loss because you've already survived it. You carry peace that cannot be stolen, strength that doesn't crumble, and faith that doesn't shake. You begin to see pain differently. You realize it was never your enemy, it was your teacher. It taught you that God can turn suffering into strength, betrayal into breakthrough, and tears into triumph. One day you'll look back and thank God for what didn't make sense. You'll see that the pain that broke you also built you. You'll see that it stripped away the fake so the real could rise, and you'll understand that every wound carried wisdom, every heartbreak carried direction, and every loss carried light. You didn't lose yourself in pain, you found your purpose through it. God took what hurt you and turned it into the foundation of your calling. You will emerge stronger, wiser, and more faithful, and you'll know deep in your soul that it was pain that birthed your power. There will come a moment when everything shifts in an instant. You'll wake up one morning and the weight that once crushed your spirit will begin to lift. The situation that felt impossible will suddenly bend in your favor. Doors that stayed locked for years will swing open with no explanation. That's what happens when God decides to move. When He moves, it's not gradual, it's sudden, unstoppable, and undeniable. What took years of pain to build, He can reverse in a single moment. What looked like failure becomes favor, and what seemed delayed turns into divine acceleration. You won't have to force it or chase it. It will come rushing toward you like a wave meant just for you. You see, God doesn't need time. He controls it. He doesn't need help. He commands everything to align. When he says it's time, every obstacle must bow, every chain must break, and every force working against you must release its hold. That's why you can't give up before the breakthrough. Many people quit right before the shift happens. They walk away at the edge of transformation because they mistake silence for stillness. But in truth, God is never still. He's preparing a supernatural turnaround that will unfold so quickly it'll leave you standing in awe. The most beautiful part of sudden miracles is that they're born out of seasons of endurance. You've endured hardship, betrayal, waiting and disappointment. You've walked through storms and survived nights that could have broken your mind. Those experiences weren't for nothing. They were setting the stage for this divine reversal. God uses long waiting seasons to make sure your heart is ready for the blessing, so that when it comes, you'll recognize it's His hand, not luck. You'll know it wasn't coincidence, it was covenant. There's something sacred about sudden change. When God moves, He does what no human effort could do. A phone call can change your story. A single conversation can shift your entire future. One opportunity can open doors you never dreamed existed. One divine connection can catapult you into purpose. The same God who turned Joseph's life around overnight, who raised Lazarus from the dead, who parted the Red Sea, is the same God writing your story. His nature hasn't changed. His power hasn't weakened. And when it's your turn, the breakthrough won't take years. It will take seconds. This is why faith must stay alive, even in silence. Because when the breakthrough begins, it won't give you time to prepare. It will just happen. The turnaround will be so swift that you'll realize why God kept you waiting. He was aligning every detail perfectly so that nothing and no one could interfere. You'll see how the rejection led to redirection, how the heartbreak positioned you for healing, and how every no protected you from premature exposure. Suddenly, what once made you cry will make you grateful, and the pain that once defined you will become the story of your resilience. When God decides to move, He breaks every limitation. He exceeds your imagination. The speed of His blessing will outpace the years of your struggle. The weight of His glory will overshadow the depth of your suffering. He will replace confusion with clarity, sorrow with laughter, and fear with unshakable peace. Everything that was against you will begin to work for you, and every closed door will serve as proof that His timing is unmatched. So don't let your spirit grow weary. The breakthrough isn't coming, it's already in motion. What God promised you is on the verge of manifestation. One moment of His favor can do more than a lifetime of effort. You will look back and realize that what felt like endless delay was simply God taking His time to prepare a perfect miracle. When it happens, you won't question how. It will be so sudden, so powerful, and so precise that you'll know without a doubt, this was the hand of God. When people walk away from your life, it can feel like rejection. It can feel like a knife to the heart, like everything you built together suddenly collapses. You question yourself, wondering what you did wrong, trying to hold on to connections that no longer hold space for you. But what if those exits were not betrayals, but blessings? What if every person who left was divinely removed because they couldn't go where God is taking you? Sometimes God clears your path by subtraction, not addition. When He's about to elevate you, He must separate you from what can't survive the altitude. It hurts, yes. Losing people hurts. Watching relationships crumble, seeing loyalty fade, it stings deeply. But when you look at it through the eyes of faith, you'll see that not everyone who started with you is meant to finish with you. Some people are only assigned to your past, not your future. They were part of your process, not your purpose. God knows the weight they carry, the influence they have, and the limitations they impose. He sees what you can't, that their presence could delay your promise, and so, in His mercy, He lets them leave. We often pray for elevation, but we resist separation. We ask for new seasons, but we try to drag old people into them. God doesn't allow that. He knows that certain relationships, habits, or environments cannot coexist with your destiny. That's why when He's about to do something new, things start falling apart. Conversations dry up, friendships fade, circles shrink. It feels lonely, but it's divine isolation. You're not being punished. You're being purified. The noise around you is being silenced, so you can finally hear His voice clearly. Think about Abraham. God told him to leave his country, his people, and his father's house before showing him the promised land. The promise didn't come until he separated from what was familiar. That's a pattern. Every time God takes someone higher, He removes what weighs them down. You cannot rise while clinging to the ground. You cannot become who you're meant to be while trying to keep everyone comfortable. The pruning may be painful, but it's necessary for fruit to grow. Sometimes God allows betrayal not to break you, but to reveal who's really for you. The pain of their departure is the protection of your destiny. If they had stayed, they would have contaminated the next chapter of your life. Their absence is proof of God's presence. He saw conversations you didn't hear, intentions you couldn't read, and motives you didn't sense. While you were begging them to stay, heaven was whispering, "Let them go," because God knew you couldn't carry their energy into your breakthrough. And when you finally release them, you'll feel something incredible. Peace. The kind of peace that only comes when you stop fighting for what's already expired. You'll start to see how every departure cleared space for divine arrival. The right people will appear, the right doors will open, and the right opportunities will flow. You'll understand that God didn't remove people to leave you empty. He removed them to make room for better ones. The ones who will love you without agenda, walk with you without envy, and stand by you without condition. So don't chase what God removed. Don't mourn what He delivered you from. When He takes something away, it's never loss. It's alignment. Every goodbye is making space for a greater hello. Every ending is preparing you for a beginning that fits your future, not your past. When God prunes your life, it's not to harm you, it's to position you. Trust that every person who walked away was part of the plan. Their exit was the turning point of your story. You'll soon see that what you thought was rejection was actually God's redirection toward destiny. There comes a moment when you finally understand that nothing you lost truly left you empty. It only created space for God to give you more. When He restores, He doesn't just bring things back to where they were. He multiplies, He exceeds, He overflows. That's the beauty of divine restoration. It always returns greater than what was taken. You see, the enemy can steal your joy, your peace, your opportunities, but he cannot touch what God has ordained to be yours. Every tear, every disappointment, every sleepless night was a deposit into a spiritual account that is now ready to release abundance. God doesn't just balance the scales, He tilts them in your favor. When you've endured loss, you begin to think you'll never feel whole again. You wonder if the pain will ever stop echoing in your heart. But the God you serve is not just a healer, He's a restorer. He doesn't give you back what you lost in the same form. He gives it back better, purer, and more aligned with your destiny. The restoration coming your way won't just heal your wounds, It will remind you that God never forgot you. It will erase years of grief in moments of grace. Where there was sorrow, He will write laughter. Where there was emptiness, He will pour fulfillment. Look at Job's story. He lost everything, his family, his wealth, his health. Yet when God restored him, it wasn't just a recovery, it was a multiplication. Scripture says God gave him twice as much as he had before. That's what divine restoration looks like. It doesn't return you to the past. It launches you into something greater than you've ever known. What broke you becomes the reason for your blessing. What was meant to destroy you becomes the foundation for your testimony. The loss wasn't final, it was preparation for overflow. Sometimes God allows you to go through seasons of lack so you'll recognize the difference between temporary provision and permanent promise. The things that were stripped away weren't punishment, they were pruning. He was removing what couldn't sustain your next chapter. You thought He was taking from you, but He was actually making room. You thought you were being emptied, but you were being positioned to overflow. That's how restoration works. It begins with loss, but it ends with abundance. And when it comes, it will come in ways you didn't expect. The peace will return first. You'll start to feel whole, even before the blessing manifests. Then doors will open that were long shut. People will come into your life who honor what others once took for granted. Opportunities will find you that align perfectly with your calling. Every scar will tell a story of divine compensation. You'll realize that the pain was the seed for the promise. The tears were watering your future. The suffering was shaping your spirit to hold the weight of the miracle that's about to unfold. God restores everything the enemy tried to destroy, but He never does it quietly. When restoration happens, people will see it. Those who thought you'd never recover will witness your redemption. Those who doubted you will stand in silence as they see favor fall over your life like rain. You won't have to defend yourself. Your restoration will shift for you. The tables will turn, the narrative will shift, and your faith will be vindicated before everyone who ever questioned it. So, lift your eyes. The same hands that allowed the breaking are the hands preparing the blessing. The God who watched you lose it all is the same God who's about to give it back, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. You will not just recover, you will rise. You will not just heal, you will be renewed. The days of lack will be replaced by days of laughter. The nights of sorrow will give way to mornings of joy. What was taken will return in divine fullness. Because when God restores, He doesn't just fix what was lost. He makes you forget the pain that came with it. There will come a day when you'll look back at the nights you cried, the seasons you doubted, and the moments you felt abandoned, and you'll whisper to yourself, "How did I ever question Him?" That's the power of God's movement. He moves in ways so divine, so precise, that they silence every fear, heal every scar, and erase every doubt. When His hand finally reveals what it was doing in the dark, you'll stand in awe, realizing that His silence was strategy, His delay was design, and His ways were always higher than yours. Every sleepless night will make sense, every unanswered prayer will reveal its purpose, and every wound will tell a story of how God turned pain into proof. You see, doubt grows in the gap between the promise and the manifestation. When nothing seems to be changing, when prayers echo back in silence, the human heart begins to waver. Maybe God forgot me, you think. Maybe it's not meant to be. But God's faithfulness isn't dependent on your feelings. It's anchored in His unchanging character. Even when you doubt Him, He never doubts His plan for you. Even when you lose faith, He keeps working. The proof of His love is not in the speed of His response, It's in the perfection of His timing. When God finally moves, He does so with purpose. The pieces that never made sense start to connect. The pain that once crushed you becomes your testimony, and the prayers that once felt ignored reveal their divine timing. You realize He wasn't withholding anything from you. He was preparing everything for you. He didn't delay because you weren't ready to receive. He delayed because your blessing wasn't ready to arrive. What He was forming was bigger than you imagined, and it required time, maturity, and alignment. The moment His power touches your life, doubt can no longer survive. You'll see how He carried you through storms you didn't even know He calmed. You'll see how the doors that closed were protecting you from destruction. You'll understand that what you called a setback was actually a reroute. You'll begin to recognize the divine fingerprints on every chapter of your story. And then gratitude will replace confusion, praise will replace pain, and awe will replace anxiety. You'll know that even your doubts served a purpose, because they made the revelation of His power even more astonishing. The truth is, faith doesn't mean you never question. It means you trust through the questions. It means you choose to believe that God's silence is still speaking, that His not yet is still love, and that His unseen hand is still working in your favor. Every believer has moments of weakness, but the ones who endure discover something extraordinary. God doesn't just answer prayers. He exceeds them. He doesn't just prove Himself, He leaves you speechless. When He restores, it's not just your situation that changes, it's your vision. You start seeing the divine purpose in everything. You stop fearing the unknown because you've witnessed how powerfully He moves in it. You stop doubting His timing because you've lived through enough to know that His way is always perfect. The same circumstances that once made you question Him now make you praise Him. You begin to see that the waiting wasn't wasted. It was where your faith grew roots deep enough to survive any storm. And when the miracle finally unfolds, when your prayers are answered, your strength is renewed and your peace returns, you'll stand there in awe not just of what God did, but of who He has always been. You'll realize that He never failed you, not once. Every doubt will dissolve in the light of His power. Every fear will be forgotten in the glow of His faithfulness. You'll fall to your knees and whisper, "Now I understand." Because in that moment you'll see clearly that the God you doubted was the same God who carried you, sustained you, and blessed you beyond measure. The move He's about to make will leave you not just grateful, but forever changed. In the end, every unanswered prayer, every painful delay, and every sleepless night will make sense. You'll see that God was never withholding anything from you. He was preparing everything for you. Every season of silence was shaping your spirit. Every disappointment was redirecting your steps, and every heartbreak was carving space for divine restoration. When His move finally comes, and it will come with such power, precision, and purpose that it will silence every doubt you ever had. You'll look back and realize He was there all along, guiding, protecting, and orchestrating your story with a love so deep that even your pain had meaning. What once broke you will become the proof that He was building you. The darkness that once scared you will reveal the light that never left. And as His blessings overflow, you'll stand in awe, whispering, "How did I ever doubt Him?" That's when you'll understand. God's timing was never late, His silence was never absence, and His ways were never wrong. They were simply higher. You'll know without a trace of uncertainty that His power was working all along, and that everything you lost, waited for, and prayed for was leading you right here to this moment of divine restoration, where your faith becomes sight and your doubt turns into worship.